someday we might memorize Spirit of Light, but we're not quite there yet. Now, I'd like to start what typically is called the sermon, but to us, this isn't going to be a sermon. We're hoping this is a conversation. We like to tell you what it's like from our perspective. From the way I've worded it, I'd like to tell you about my sense of reality. But I have to say a few preliminaries first. We were asked if we were going to have people wear sleep shades or close their eyes for this service, and we said no. And there's several reasons for this. First of all, you haven't had the blindness training that we have in mobility, in technology, and life skills, so it wouldn't be the same. And sitting there with your vision blocked for half an hour or so, while you're not really doing much more than sitting, it's not going to give you the perspective of what it's like to be blind. And most significantly, you know that you're going to get your vision back. All you have to do is remove the shade or open your eyes. So it won't give you an altering point of view or perspective. So we think it's more gimmicky than anything else, and we didn't go that route. I need to talk to you a little bit about the degrees of blindness before I go into what my world's like. I was very naive before I lost my sight. I thought, well, if you're blind, it meant you didn't see anything. And if you weren't blind, then you had sight. But there's a whole realm of ranges of blindness, starting with legal blindness. Now, I don't know what the eye charts are like now. I haven't seen one for 15 years. But back in my day, you had a big E at the top, and then there was an SL. And if you could see the E but not the SL, you were legally blind, 2200, and that was that. And then as people started losing more sight, eventually they'd lose the details. They couldn't make out faces or detailed objects. Eventually, color would go away, and you'd have to hold things closer and closer. Soon, the objects might turn into shadows. Eventually, if you keep losing sight, the shadows start vanishing and you see just light. And eventually, if you still keep losing sight, the light goes away. I'm at that point. I can't tell you if it's day or night. I was into blindness for about 5 years before I was told that only 3% of the people who call themselves blind are in my condition where they don't see anything. When I learned that, I was actually kind of amused, in a way relieved, because it explained to me why other people who said they were blind were having so much easier time doing things than I was. Gave me kind of an excuse there, but that's okay. As I said, it will change your perspective on reality depending where you are on that scale. Your reality will also change depending on when you lost your sight. If you were born blind, well, then you never knew what color was. If you lost your sight when you were young, then you probably took a fair number of risks as you strived to be independent. If you lost your sight later in life, then you wanted to keep things as much as what they were when you had sight, and so you just wanted to, how do I get through this and keep functioning? And again, your sense of reality may depend on where you are on that scale. I'm going to talk basically about where I am, but I will mention one other situation, and you'll see why as I get there. The first thing that mattered to me, or the most obvious thing where my sense of reality is different, is that I live in a much more minimalist world, or as I like to say, a less cluttered world. So a lot of the things I don't see. I can tell that there's a chair here, I'm sitting in it, I know there's chairs in the sanctuary, I'm told there's big windows and all, I know that, but there's so much, obviously, I don't see the banners, the posters and all that, I don't see those objects. Also, actions. I don't see actions. Unless it's described to me, I could very well miss what's going on. Again, I can hear things and I can gain a lot of sense of it from what I hear, but it's going to be a more minimalist sense because I'm not going to get the complete picture. A less cluttered sense, a more minimal sense of action. Those are the two main things that my world's different than yours. And it leads to the big question, does it matter? Does it matter? And this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about someone else's experience, so you'll see how this fits in. As some of you know, I facilitate a Zoom support group call for people losing sight. It's done through the American Council of the Blind, so people from all over the country participate. And I'd say maybe a quarter to a third of the people, their sight's stable. It's some level of blindness, but it's stable. And they're not very anxious or concerned because they know what their tomorrow is going to be like. It's going to be like their yesterday. They know they're managing. about 2/3 to 3/4 are in the process of losing sight. And while they generally try to stay very positive, they all have some level of anxiety because they don't know what tomorrow is going to be like, and they don't know how they're going to function. And that's why they come to the support group. There's a guy in the support group from Minnesota named Randy, and he has a fair amount of sight even though he's legally blind. I thought he was functioning very well. He was asking intelligent questions. He didn't seem at all anxious. He was participating in groups. He travels. He went for a week's training in mobility. I thought he was doing all the right things. One day, we started discussing on the call that certain speakers at conventions will describe themselves. I think they did this at the General Assembly this year. I'm a petite blind woman wearing a blue dress, or I'm an elderly bald guy wearing a black shirt and spectacles. And I know that this is done with the best of reasons to make certain that if you don't have sight, you feel included. But does it matter to us? Most of the people on the call felt that this wasn't very important. We're not going to remember it an hour from now. It puts the focus on a visual image, where now focuses on not a visual image. We really don't care. We just want to know what they're going to say. But it mattered a great deal to Randy. He wanted to know every single description. Then he took it a step further, and he said that when he went one day to pick up a package where all the Amazon packages were delivered, someone in his complex said, "Well, there's nothing for you here today, Randy." He wanted to know who every package was for, the name on every package. Most of us on the call were dumbfounded. I could tell by the lack of reaction. And I tried to figure this out. It dawned on me, he has not adjusted to the idea of sight loss. He wants to know everything that a sighted person, if a sighted person can see that, then he wants to see that. And it's going to be futile because you can't have everything explained to you. It's just not feasible. And he's going to have to face it at some point. Doesn't matter. It mattered to him because he felt left out. Does it matter to me? Typically, no. I mean, most of the time, my focus isn't on the visual things. Would I like to have sight again? Sure. I'd like to see my children and Rick, who I've never seen. I'd like to see the ocean and sunset and foreign lands and people you here at UUFBR. But most of the time, I don't fret over it. I don't even think about it because there's so many other things going on. Occasionally, I'll hear about a wonderful trip where you can go and see all these exotic things. And I'll say, "Rick, we've got it." And then I'll say, "Oh, wait a second. Maybe that won't work for us," because I'm just not focused on it. I'm okay with what I see in my world and what I don't see. And you just go on and live your life. So it doesn't matter to me most of the time. If someone were to tell me about an action or an object, would I remember it a week from now, or tomorrow, or an hour from now? In most cases, no. Most of the stuff you see, you either don't pay attention because you've seen it every day, it just becomes background, or because it's not something you're going to focus on in the next hour or two or whatever, because you're going to go on to the next thing. So by and large, no, it doesn't really matter to me. Let me think of my next point. Organization. That is something, if you're blind, you need to be organized. I guess I've always been good at organization. Some people might say I have a type A personality. I think it had something to do with getting 2 ADHD sons from middle and high school, but it's, you need organization. The obvious reason for that is if you're going to put something down, you better know where you put it, because if you're going to ever find it again, you need to be organized to find it. You need to keep your clothes organized, especially if you have things that look alike, so you know what you're matching together. You need to, well, when I cook, I have a spice rack, and I put a bump dot on the first spice, and then I list them on my computer alphabetically, so I know if I'm hunting for the cilantro, it's going to be in the second column, third thing down. You just look for organization. And another way that you look for organization, say, is you need to pay attention when you go to meetings. This is my 5th year on the UUFBR Board of Trustees, and I have to confess, I've never read our financial statements, because I cannot read our financial statements. My screen reader would read every line item description, and then it would read all the numbers, and there's no way to match the numbers to the line items. So I stay focused. I go to the finance committee meetings and the board meetings, and I listen to what's said, and I have a pretty good idea of where we stand financially, because you pay attention, you stay organized in your thinking, and it's just something you have to do if you don't have sight. Let me mention senses and how you use other senses. Obvious ones, hearing. The most obvious one there is screen readers. Our phone and our computers have what's known as a screen reader. It will read out loud everything that people would see on the screen. Usually it's pretty good. Sometimes you'll get to a website where not everything that's on a site will be read out loud, or there'll be something that you're supposed to push, but you don't have your cursor in the right place because you can't see a cursor and it doesn't work. But most of the time, we're in a golden age of technology for blind people, and that hearing gets you through a lot of the things that otherwise you'd need sight for. But in other ways, hearing can help. You can listen for echoes. If you're walking by a wall, the sound's going to sound different than if you're in a wide open space. Some people try to train themselves for this. I never did, but it just starts coming to you after a while. It's just kind of a sense as you pay attention to what's around you. And I'm not as good at it as some people, but it does help. What helps me more to get located, because I have no sight, it's very easy for me to think I'm heading in one direction and I'm actually 90 or 180 degrees off, is we have an Amazon Echo in just about every room but the bathrooms in our houses, and I simply say, Alexa, where are you? And because I know where I put them, I hear that response, it gets me reoriented. So hearing. Then there's touching. And again, the obvious thing with touching is to find an object. Here, I have the benefit of having had sight because I have a visual memory. So I have a sense of what the shape of this thing is that I'm groping for. I tell Rick I'm a much better groper than him because of this. But I have this sense of what I'm reaching for, and that's important. But touching helps in another way. When I was first lost my sight, shortly after I lost my sight, I was living in a split-level house, and one day I was at the top level. I turned myself 90 degrees without realizing it, and I tumbled from the top floor to the middle level. That very same day, without reaching for the railing or anything, I tumbled from the middle level down to the bottom level. It was kind of a painful way of learning to pay more attention and touch, reach for a railing, reach for a wall. Sometimes when I'm walking in a wide open space and our things, I feel like I'm swimming because my hand's out like this. Where's the wall? Where's the wall? I don't want to bang into it with my head. Swimming. Sometimes we use furniture. If I bump into the soft leather couch, I say, yay, I found a couch, I know where I am. Then again, when I bump into the handlebars on Rick's stationary bike, I say, ouch, I know where I am. But touching, so it helps. Smelling helps a little bit. You know, if there's something in the refrigerator that begins to stink because you haven't seen the mold on it, that helps. Or you can smell the cinnamon when you're looking for a spice. Less obvious, but it's there. Something that's not a sense but helps is timing. I mentioned the refrigerator example. Because you can't tell if things look bad, you remember, oh, that's been in the refrigerator for a week, better toss that. Or if I'm trying to cook something, I avoid the recipes that say, wait till the meat or the butter's turn brown, or wait till the onions turn translucent. I look for the recipes that say, cook 5 minutes. So timing, that helps. Let me say a few things that I realized that are a little unusual in my world that I don't think twice about, but I realized as I thought about this speech today are unusual. I don't think about light. So if you come to my house in the evening, you might have to actually have the lights turned on because I'm not going to think to do it. It's going to be very dark. It happened to my sister once when she came and there was no light on it. It was embarrassing when someone came the other day and she asked where the kitchen light switch was, and I said, I don't know because I never turn on the light. So feel free to turn on the lights if you come and visit. Another funny thing is we got two blind people living together. Occasionally we collide with each other. So we've got very good at saying, well, where are you? I'm over here, I'm over here. I didn't think about this, and when my sons were visiting once, I said, Gavin, I'm sitting here in the blue chair. And he said, Mom, I can see you there. But it's just part of my world. Speed. Anytime I do something, it's going to take me anywhere from 2 to 5 times longer than it will take you. Whether it's working on the computer to make certain my window hasn't jumped, or I'm trying to work with a website, or trying to type something and catch the typos, or whether I'm trying to cook, that will take 5 times longer. And don't even get me started about threading a needle with a needle threader, because that will take all evening. But anything I'm going to do, I know I have to allow extra time because it's always going to take me longer. Just to find a place, to make certain that I've gotten back to the table when I went to pick something up, it's going to take me longer. So speed. And the final thing I guess I'm going to say is color. Because I know things have color, my mind assigns colors to things. And if no one's told me to color up something before I've assigned it, then the color I assign stays that way. When we first came here, someone told me the carpet that we had back then was blue. So in my mind, the chair cushions became blue. Someone told me, what, a year ago, after you've been coming here 5 years, that they're more like a rose shade. But in my mind, they're always going to be blue because that's the color I assigned to it. It's not going to change. And again, does it matter? Probably not. So that's it is. I'm going to come back to you guys for questions later, but right now I want to turn it over to Rick for his perspective.
Okay, Sandy, thank you. I'm basically going to talk about a few things. One of the things is the differences between Sandy and I, and I'm going to go past the obvious. Obviously, I'm a man, she's a woman. So that's a basic difference. But the other difference is I was born blind. So this is all I know. So as a child, I was taught Braille. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the history of Braille. I mean, this is not a history lesson, but I want to give you just a little glimpse of what Braille is like. Braille was invented by a man who lost his sight. His name was Louis Braille. And Louis Braille, he was sitting in his basement, and he was saying, you know, there's got to be some way of communicating, because him and his father were working on different things for the military. And he thought about it, and he said, well, there's ways through Morse code that people communicate. And he said code, and through this, he invented a 6-dot cell, and what we call a cell. And a cell is 6 dots. Now, if you take those 6 dots, think of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have the 6 dots. Now, the combination of the different dots form the different letters. So there are, with 6 dots, there are over 4,000 different combinations that you can make with 6 dots. Because if you think, you know, dot 1, dot 1 and 2, dot 1 and 4, dot 1, 6, dot, and if you go through all those, well, then you have to think, wait a minute, how about dot 2, 3, 6, dot 4, 5, 6, dot, so there's over 4,000 combinations of these dots that form, you know, Braille. And it's not only English Braille that's formed. I mean, you know, it's an international Braille. So just like in print, you have English and Spanish, and you have the same thing in Braille. You have all different, you know, combinations. And now Braille is not used as much, and I'm fast forwarding here. Now Braille is not used as much as it was because of technology. Sandy mentioned screen readers. So now our phones and our computers have screen readers, what we call screen readers, which read the screen. It says exactly what it is. It reads the screen. So I'm more comfortable using the phone. Sandy's a whiz on her computer. So it's different ways that different people can adjust. The invent of the smartphones with technology was was to me, I mean, a great blessing, that because I have my computer in my pocket. The Sandy had mentioned ACB, the American Council of the Blind. Well, there's a little history in that too, because there are actually two groups. There's the American Council of the Blind, and there's the National Federation of the Blind. Now, sort of like, think of it as the Republicans and the Democrats, okay? So the NFB, or the National Federation of the Blind, is kind of the Republicans. They're kind of more militant in their thought, and they work from the bottom up. And the American Council of the Blind says, okay, we're going to work from the, I'm sorry, I messed that up. The National Federation of the Blind works from the top down. The American Council, which we belong to, works from the bottom up. So the smaller groups, or the groups that are involved with local chapters and states like Florida has the Florida Council of the Blind. The different states have different chapters in their.
Rick, can I interrupt for just 1 second?
Sure.
NFB doesn't want little dots on the platforms for Metro because they think blind people can do it on their own. They don't want talking stoplights because they think blind people can do it on their own. They don't want anything to help the blind people. ACB will take whatever help we can get.
Exactly. Cindy's absolutely right. So, so that's kind of, that's kind of the difference. And I think that in certain ways, Sandy and I approach blindness a little bit differently. Since Sandy had sight, she can kind of guess where things are. So if somebody says to her, your chair is 3 feet in back of you, she can kind of walk comfortably and know what 3 feet is.
Unless she's turned 90 degrees.
Unless she turned 90 degrees. But myself, I'm a little more uncomfortable with that. So I kind of have to reach and, bend a little bit more and look for it. So the third thing, and probably the last thing I want to talk to you guys about, is a cane and a dog. Some people travel, as you see us, travel with canes, and some people travel with guide dogs. It's an individual's choice. There are reasons of why people travel with guide dogs. They love dogs, they love animals. It's not that we don't love animals, don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is that they feel more comfortable. Dogs are wonderful. Dogs help, I know many friends who have guide dogs, and it's fantastic. But a cane, you don't have to walk, you don't have to feed it, you don't have to worry about it crapping in somebody's yard, so it's, to me, it's so much easier. But if I'm walking along and I'm looking for something and you want to tell me where that object is, please do not grab the front of my cane because it throws off my balance. My balance is off enough as it is. So don't grab the front of my cane. What I want you to do is be as descriptive as you can. Okay, the bench is on your left, 2 feet, beside you. That way I can take my cane and I can swipe it and I can find the bench. So it's a matter of doing things. It's a matter of making folks as comfortable as you possibly can with your surroundings. And that's kind of a very brief upshot of our world. But the way I look at our world is your world. So we all help each other. We're all here to assist each other. So don't be afraid. And I know Sandy's going to mention this, but when we get to the question and answer part of this, there is no question that's out of bounds. None. You could ask us anything that you like. We can sit here for a couple hours, or we can sit here for 2 minutes. That's up to you. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Sandy so she could tell you about silly questions that some people ask us.
We welcome your questions because it means you're interested and it gives us a chance to share more of our life with you. First, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. I was reluctant to do this service, thinking who cares about
I had to
blindness?
talk her into it.
But having lived in a sighted world and now in this one, I really wanted to just share what I'm going through, how I perceive reality to you, what it's worth, because it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And I thank you for the opportunity to do that. I'm going to open it up to questions, but before I do, I'm going to give you a smattering of the type of questions we've had, because I think they've been kind of interesting. I'll start with what I call the helpful question. Is if you go for a medical procedure, like my annual mammogram, and then the person says, now can I help you get dressed? And you say always politely, thank you, no, I appreciate that, I'm fine, because they're trying to be helpful. But in the back of your mind is, how do you think I got dressed this morning? Then I'll go to the unthinking questions. We get a server in a restaurant, or maybe it's the hostess and all that, helps us find the front door, and then says, now where'd you park your car? We go to a medical appointment, a doctor's appointment, they help us sign in on the sign-in sheet, and then they actually see our driver's license. I call those the unthinking questions. Then there's the alarmist questions. I got these when I was working in an office in DC. I'm about to step into the street and they always do this with this alarm in their voice. You're about to step in the street. Well, yeah, thank you. I wanted to get to the other side. I was about to go into the DC Metro, and they said, you're about to step on the escalator. Well, yeah, I wanted to get down to the platform, but thank you. And I appreciate they do it with the best of intentions, so I don't mean to sound ungrateful. And then there's no other word for these last two. They are dumb. You cannot ask a question any dumber than these two. Someone once asked me, if you're drinking a glass of water or soda, how do you know when you're done? Like, what do you say when nothing more comes out of the glass? But my all-time favorite, I was walking with my white cane one day, and this guy came up to me, and truly, he said to me, do you know you're blind? I said the only reasonable answer I could give him. I said, no, I had no idea. Thank you for telling me. And that line, I assure you, none of your questions can be they're going to be way above that level. So if anyone
So
has
basically, you could ask us anything you
if
want.
anyone has any question, just call it out. We usually, you want to take that one or you want me to?
I'll take this one. Sometimes I like to go into the store now. All stores have a courtesy counter. So we walk up and we say, could we please have some assistance in shopping? And but they usually have a shopper that comes over and helps us. Now the problem with that is some of the shoppers have a language barrier. So when you mention that you want something and you get home, it's kind of interesting what you get. It's always a mystery in terms of, Sandy, did we order this? And
One time I tried to get Pinot Noir wine and I got peanut butter.
tell them about what Ken did.
Oh, his friend Ken was helping one day us shop, and I asked for chicken broth, and he got me chicken based instead, and I made this really, really salty cocoa van without realizing it, and I almost killed his father, who's a diabetic.
Oh, it was very funny. It was very funny. But so there are, as we said though, there are no.
The other thing we do is we use Shift, which is like Instacart, except you can.
Shift.
It's easier to talk to the person who's shopping with you. You can actually talk to them by phone. It's a Target type program.
And it's actually very accessible with the phone. So Shipt, Uber Eats, they try and make them very accessible. And even when we travel with Uber, and it's a very accessible platform. The only problem really that we're finding with Uber, again, is a language barrier, because some of the drivers do not speak English, and you try and tell them not to grab you, to let me please grab your elbow. But the tendency with people, I think, is to right away grab the person, and it's like, I didn't see that, so I have no idea what's happening. So yeah, ask people how they want to be guided. Some people prefer the shoulder, some people prefer the elbow. I prefer the elbow. I think Sandy prefers the strap on my bag.
I do latch on to him, it's easier, but that's. Any other questions? That is a very good question. Bill asked, how do we deal with a sense of time? And that's a very good question. I used to have a watch where I could. Oh, thank you. It's a good question. I used to wear a watch where I could push in the button and it would say out loud what time it was. In one of the places where we live, we have an anniversary clock that chimes the hour, and I'm going to try to get one for the other place. But often I use Alexa. Alexa, what time is it? Alexa, set a 5-minute timer. So my basic answer to that is Alexa or Google Home Mini.
Yes, I do the same thing. When I was younger, I wore a Braille watch, and now I just, with the invention of cell phones and everything, I just ask Siri, what time is it? And Siri will tell me, and I'm glad she didn't speak now because that would have been really embarrassing. But, you know, also like Sandy said, Alexa or, you know, something like that.
Where it gets difficult is when you're in a meeting and you can't very well say out loud, especially if you're unmuted, Alexa, what time is it? Is this meeting ever going to end? So then you just kind of have to wing it.
Well, what it is, the way they set up the Braille watches, it wasn't really a Braille necessarily. They had 3 dots going down up at the top, and that was at the 12, and then the 1 was a dot, the 2 was a dot, and then the 3 were 2 dots. So every quarter of an hour, there were 2 dots on the phone, on the watch, I'm sorry, on the watch. So that, that's how most people did it. It wasn't real Braille, but it saved space on the watch. Any other questions?
Great, Sandy. How did you guys meet? You guys are just a wonderful, beautiful couple with Bob Schneider, and I just love to know how you guys met and fell in love, because obviously you fell in love with each other's attitude, you know, the inside of each other. So it's amazing. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Bob Snyder asked, how did we meet? Do you want to take that one or do you want me to?
Oh, I'm going to grab this one. Yeah, I'm gonna take a hold of this one. Bob, I met Sandy. I mentioned the American Council of the Blind before. The American Council of the Blind has conferences once a year, and they usually have them all around the country. So this particular year, 2016, I think it was, 2014. Yeah. That's why I have her here. 2014. So we, the American Council of the Blind was in Vegas, and the host usually has a big party the first night. So I walk in, and it's this huge, you know, ballroom with tables and everything. And I'm walking around, and as I said before, I have a little bit of sight. I'm not totally blind. I have a little bit of sight. So, so the carpeting was a brown carpet, and the tables were brown and everything. And I saw a person in a dress, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I've got to go over and say hello." So I went over and I said, "Excuse me, is there anybody sitting here?" And Sandy said to me, "No, nobody's sitting here." And I sat down, and she was with her friend. And I said, "Can I buy you ladies a drink?"
Never turned down a free glass of wine.
Never turned down. So that's how we met. And we spent a lot of that conference together. We went.
Tell the whole story. My friend, he started dancing with me, and I'm thinking, here, I'm 60 years old being picked up. I thought that was kind of amazing. But my friend had braces, so she couldn't dance, and there was another guy that was sitting on her side, but she said she wanted to go get a drink someplace. So I got up to go with her, because you leave with the person you come with. And the 2 guys got up, and we lost each other, because guess what? We're blind. We couldn't.
We're trying to follow each other, and it was impossible.
When I got eventually down to the elevator lobby, I heard his voice, so I called out to him, and he said, "You want to go to this nightclub in the hotel?" And I'm 60 years old, and I'd never been to a nightclub, so of course I said yes. And then he said he was going to go to the men's room, so I'm sitting there sipping my wine, and suddenly the band say, "And this song's for Rick and Sandy, this is your song." And I'm thinking, how very, very sweet, and how way, way, way too soon.
The waitress came over and I said to the waitress, could you show me where the men's room is? And I got up and I said to her, we don't have to go to the restroom. I said, I want to go over by the band. And she brought me over and the song I picked was actually a song that I sang to Sandy at our wedding, and it was Elton John's Your Song. So yeah, it was, and I've always been like really romantic. I've always been like, like that. Like I'll try and do special things. Now it's kind of more difficult when you live with somebody because they're around. So it's hard to, walk in another room and plan something, but I try and do it every once in a while.
He had our Alexa every morning for many years say, this is your reminder, Rick loves Sandy. Finally.
I don't want her to forget,
No, but it's a good point though, because it means people sometimes, especially some of the people on the Tuesday support group call, think blindness is the end of your world. And blindness got me a husband. So you have to say it.
Rick and Sandy?
Yes.
Claire Smith would like to know how you keep your clothes organized.
That's a good question. For me, it's more easy probably than Rick because a lot of my clothes are not alike. I don't have another dress that looks like this one. I have two dresses that are alike, and typically I try to remember to put one further to the left in the closet than the other one so that I don't wear the same one twice in a row without wearing the other one. It's a matter of memory and putting things that are similar in different areas, different drawers or different parts of the closet. You want to take that one for you?
Sure. And with me, it's kind of like the same thing. I have a lot of shirts that, look alike, and my pants are either, I'm a guy and I'm comfortable in like jeans or something like that. I'm a lot more comfortable in shorts, but of course that, we're in church, so you gotta wear long pants in church. So, that's just, and my, of course, everything is separated. So t-shirts are in one drawer, my shorts are in a drawer, my pants are hanging up in a closet, and my shirts are in a closet also.
And this is where the sense of touch comes in. So if I want to know what dress to wear, I touch and try to remember, well, okay, the one that has the little thing on the bottom, that's the one I want to wear today, or the one that has the thing where you tie the sleeve, okay, I know it, so touch.
And see, Sandy doesn't know what I'm wearing today.
I never know what he's wearing. Please tell me he looks okay.
So I'm going to tell her that I'm wearing orange and green, and that matches.
Rick, I'm not even certain what color I'm wearing today. Well, he went to the wrong closet, Paul. Told you, you can make these mistakes, you go veer a little bit. He went to the wrong closet.
We also have a question from Reverend Ricky.
Yes.
She says, good morning, everyone. Wonderful to be amidst you all again. I'm amazed that Sandy, you cook and entertain and do it well. My question, do you feel you are an exception to the rule among blind couples?
I think that we're lucky that we found each other. I don't think we're an exception. I think that a lot of people can do this. I think a lot has to do with your personality. Again, I'm judging this from the people in the Tuesday call. Most blind people can do most anything. We actually know a blind person who tried driving a car and one who tried flying an airplane, though I wouldn't recommend it. But, but it's a question of how used are you to being blind. I've been blind for 14 years, so I'm fairly comfortable in doing certain things. If you're more newly blind, you're not going to have had that experience, and you're not going to manage as well because you haven't gotten used to it. And if you're in the process of losing sight, then you're going to think that you can't do it, and you're going to be more anxious about trying. Some people, personalities tend to be maybe a little bit more anxious or depressed. Other people tend to be much more lax and outgoing. As I said, I think I'm kind of a type A personality, and Rick's a type B personality, and it just, a lot has to do with how you approach things, and I don't think we're an exception. There's so many people I know in ACB that are so competent and do so many great things, but it depends on how much experience you've had.
And I think that one of the things that I want to stress, and, you know, if you take away nothing else from our presentation, we're average. We're just like anybody else. I speak to schools a lot, and I love to speak to younger kids. And one of the things that I say when I give my presentation is, "Hi, I'm Rick. I'm not the blind guy. I'm Rick, who happens to be blind. I'm not the blind guy, Rick." And there's a difference. The difference is my name is first. So you're going to know me by Rick, not by the blind guy. And I think that Sandy can elaborate on that a little bit also.
Oh, actually, I think when people first meet us, what are they going to notice? They're going to notice that we're blind. That's inevitable. Just like if you meet someone who's tall, the first thing you're going to notice, that's a really tall person. It's just inevitable. What we want, and I hope we've done it here, is to get to the point where people know us so they don't think of the blindness. They think of me as, well, that's Sandy. She does this on the board, or she does this, or she aggravates me, whatever. But they think of me as Sandy, and they don't think about the blindness. And once we've crossed that, and we can usually tell when we've crossed that with people, once you cross that, then you know you've succeeded. But people, they have to get to know you before the first thing that comes to their mind isn't the blindness.
Yeah. And it's fun to watch because it's almost like that, you know, that aha moment, like all of a sudden the light goes on and people are like, hey, they're normal people, you know, like we're not any different. We're just like you. We pay taxes. We you know.
We had to laugh once. Rick's mother was on vacation. She said, "I'm so sorry I didn't send you the pictures." And we said, "Mom, I don't think that's necessary."
Sure.
How much time do you have people in the community who are also blind? How much time do you spend with them? Like that, do you feel comfortable with them, or with people you use, or people who are Democrats, or like where do you like to be?
That answer is different for Rick and me. People I'm most friendly with are people here at UUFBR, and I'm very grateful for that. I belong to the local chapter of the Florida Council of the Blind. Right now, we only have about 8 people there, and I see them once a month. My main contact with blind people is through the Alliance on Aging and Vision Loss, which is a special interest affiliate of the American Council. It's that alliance that actually is the sponsor of the Tuesday support group call. And so my main contact is the people on the Tuesday call. And when we meet, the alliance has its board meeting on the first Sunday of every month. That matters to me. But Rick's more involved with blind people, so I'm going to let him answer that.
I'm involved with several blind groups. I'm the president of our local chapter of the Florida Council of the Blind. I'm the second vice of the Braille Club, which is more of a social group here in Palm Beach County. So I think because I've been blind longer than Sandy, and maybe not, maybe Sandy can elaborate a little more, but I think because I'm blind, I kind of gravitated, well, you know, I can't say that because growing up, I had both sighted and blind friends. So I can't really say that. And I've met some wonderful people here at UFBR. So,
Tell them what the Braille Club is.
well, I just said it's a social,
It's
it's a social group
it's a
for
group of
people who are
blind people.
visually impaired.
It's a group of blind people that meet weekly and sometimes more often that do things together, social organization. They have a clubhouse and they meet every Wednesday and sometimes they do Saturday activity. It's a very active blind group.
And they mostly older because that's the learning Braille.
You don't have to know Braille.
You don't have to
read.
know Braille
They just named,
to be involved
the
in the
Braille
Braille
Club's
Club.
been around since the 1930s, and why they chose that name, I think it's because the two founders knew Braille.
That would take another hour of our service to explain the history of the Braille Club, but yeah, you don't have to be blind, you don't have to know Braille to be involved in the Braille Club. You don't even have to be blind to be involved in the Braille Club. We have some wonderful volunteers, so if
Larry
anybody.
McDowell, who came here and preached in February, Larry McDowell is the head of the Braille Club, the president of the
Larry
Braille Club.
McDowell, yeah, Larry McDowell spoke here. He's the president of the Braille Club. If anybody wants some, volunteer hours or would like some time that, that they would like to devote to an organization, let me know. I can lead you in that direction.
We have time for one more question?
Deal with fear because there's so many things going on in the world. Bad things happen every day. You're more vulnerable. You can't see. How do you deal with that fear that someone is going to attack you or treat you badly or?
That's a very good question. I think, I'm going to let Rick answer. We're going to both answer that one because I think it's a little bit different for both of us. For me, being female, I worked in Washington, D.C. for many years, and I just knew there are certain places I wouldn't go after hours and certain places I wouldn't go at all because it's just safety concerns. And I don't think that my blindness made that much of a difference. I was more worried blind that I'd kind of trip and hurt myself than that someone would come and take advantage of me, but I stayed in very safe areas. The one time where it got kind of interesting is every time we go on a plane, they, give us priority boarding and they tell us that, wait, we'll be the last one off the plane. And I remember one time the person told us that, if there's ever an incident where people have to get off the plane in emergency, you're going to be the last one off with us. That was kind of reassuring. Why don't you answer, because you were mugged once.
Okay. Yeah, the thing is, and I guess Sandy's right. As a male, I really don't even think about it. I mean, when I was younger, I love concerts, and as you guys probably can tell, I love music. I love all different types of music. So when I was younger, I used to go every weekend. I'm from Jersey originally. I used to go every weekend into New York and into Central Park and check out the different concerts. Oh, they had some great concerts in Central Park. I saw Simon and Garfunkel. I saw, all these people, and it was just fabulous. And I went to museums. I love the city and I love traveling. And I think one of the things that I tell, blind people, really anybody, when they travel, act like you know where you're going. Because if people think that you know where you're going, they're not going to bother you. If you show fear, then people are going to prey on that. But if you don't show fear, if you act like you know where you're going, even you may not have a clue. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to say to somebody, are we near 42nd? Are we near 45th? Are we near 3rd Street? People are usually fairly helpful. Sometimes, as you heard through this presentation, sometimes a little bit too helpful, but they are helpful. And, you know, you have to be grateful that people are willing to help you. So,
You said it's the end of the time for question. Please find us anytime, because we're always happy to answer any question. It means that you're interested in our lives, and we appreciate sharing. But let me throw out one question to you, and it won't take very long. What do you think is the hardest thing for a blind person to do in daily life? Just want to see what you think after this presentation.
good question.
I think, Isabel,
Yes?
I think the hardest thing is figuring out what is nighttime and what is daytime and when you're going to need to go to sleep.
Ah, that's an interesting answer. Anyone else? Cookies? That's challenging. Oh, that's a good one. I've made certain, my mobility teachers taught me how to do that once.
What was that?
Using a public restroom.
Ah,
No, the answer actually, and I'm pretty confident in this answer, is walking. It's walking, because if you don't know where you're walking, what you're stepping into, everything you do involves walking. And from what I hear from people getting used to on the Tuesday call, they're always concerned about mobility. The hardest thing is just plain walking.
one of the things, and Sandy and I talk about this all the time, and we can't figure out why people do this. When people are walking a sighted guide, which I said before is me taking your elbow, when they come to a step, they'll step down the step and then say, oh, there's a step here, and stop. And I want to tell them, just move a little bit forward so I can comfortably step down that step also. So I walk a little bit behind you so I can get a sense of your elbow when it goes up a step and when it goes down a step. Most of the time, I can tell where there's a step by you stepping off. If you know it's a larger step, then that's something a little different. Then I need a little bit of direction. But you know, most of the time I can do that okay.
It also helps when someone says you're coming to a step if they tell you whether it's up or down. But on that note, I'm told we need to move on.